The stars looked different from this far out. Commander Susan Ford stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Retribution and watched the unfamiliar patterns through the main viewport. After 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel, they had finally reached the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, home to the Galactic Council's main diplomatic station. "Nervous?" asked Lieutenant Alan Miller from his tactical station. Susan smiled slightly but kept her eyes on the stars. "Wouldn't you be? We're about to be the first humans most of these aliens have ever seen." The year was 2157, and humanity had only discovered FTL travel 5 years ago. Earth had spent those years building ships and preparing for their entry onto the galactic stage. The Retribution was the pride of the fleet, nearly a mile long, powered by revolutionary quantum engines and armed with weapons that could crack a small moon. But today it was here on a mission of peace. "Captain on deck," called out the ship's AI as Captain Greg Wallace entered the bridge. Everyone straightened a little taller. Greg was an older man with gray at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in Earth's last war and had been chosen specifically for this mission because he understood the value of peace. "Status report," he said, taking his command chair. "All systems normal, Captain," said Sam Powell from engineering. "Engines purring like kittens." "We're receiving coordinates for the diplomatic approach vector," added Diane Evans from communications. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "They're directing us to a position 10,000 kilometers from their station." Greg nodded. "That's a respectful distance, good sign." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as the massive battleship moved forward. Everyone understood what was at stake. This first meeting could shape relations between Earth and the rest of the galaxy for centuries. 3 diplomats stood at the back of the bridge. They wore the formal blue uniforms of the United Earth government. Jack Porter, the lead diplomat, looked pale. His hands clutched a data tablet so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "Relax, Jack," Susan said quietly when she walked past him. "We've practiced the protocols 100 times. Jack tried to smile. "It's just 17 different alien species, Commander. 17 civilizations, most of them thousands of years more advanced than us. What if we say the wrong thing?" "That's why you're here. You're good with words." She patted his shoulder. "And if words fail, we've got the biggest stick humanity has ever built." Jack didn't look comforted by that. The Retribution moved closer to the coordinates they'd been given. The Galactic Council station came into view, a massive ring-shaped structure that gleamed silver against the blackness of space. Smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. "Look at the size of that thing," whispered Alan. "Must be 10 miles across." "Receiving transmission," Diane announced. "They're welcoming us to Council space and asking us to confirm our peaceful intentions." Greg nodded. "Send the standard reply. We come in friendship, seeking to join the galactic community." Minutes passed in tense silence as they waited for a response. Susan watched the alien station grow larger in the viewport. Something felt wrong. The small ships were moving in patterns that seemed too organized, too purposeful. "Captain," she said quietly, "those ships are taking up attack positions." Greg frowned. "Are you certain?" Before Susan could answer, alarms blared across the bridge. "Energy. Spike!" Alan shouted. "Multiple weapons powering up on the station and the surrounding vessels." "Raise shields," Greg ordered. "All hands to battle stations." Susan jumped to her console as the first volley of alien weapons fire streaked toward the Retribution. The shields flared brilliant blue as they absorbed the attack. "What are they doing?" Jack cried. "We followed all the protocols." "No return. Fire," Greg commanded firmly. "This has to be a misunderstanding." Another volley hit stronger this time. The ship shuddered. "Shields at 82%, Alan reported. "Captain, we need to defend ourselves." "Open all communication channels," Greg ordered Diane. "Broadcast in every language and format we know. Tell them we mean no harm." Susan watched the tactical display as more alien ships moved into position around them. This was no misunderstanding. This was an ambush. "Captain," she said urgently, "we need to create some distance." Greg hesitated for only a second before nodding. Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of the kill zone, but still no weapons fire. Susan took partial control of navigation and guided the massive battleship into a defensive pattern. The Retribution was surprisingly nimble for its size, a testament to human engineering. Another blast hit them, this one penetrating the shields at one point. The bridge rocked violently. A console exploded near the back, showering sparks across the room. Direct hit on Deck 7, Sam called out. Breach in the diplomatic quarters. Jack's face went white. The rest of my team was there. Susan checked her readings and shook her head slightly at Greg. No one could have survived that hit. Greg's face hardened. Get us out of here. Maximum. Speed to the jump point. Captain, Alan protested. We can fight back. The Retribution can take them. And start an interstellar war? Greg's voice was like iron. Not today, Lieutenant. We came in peace and we'll leave the same way. The ship turned away from the station, accelerating rapidly as more weapons fire chased after it. 3 Earth diplomats were dead. First contact had failed in the worst possible way. On the main screen, they could see more alien ships joining. The attack. The Galactic Council had clearly been preparing for this moment. Why? Jack whispered, still staring at the display. Why would they do this? Susan had been asking herself the same question. They're afraid of us, she realized aloud. They see our ship, our weapons. They fired first, Alan said through gritted teeth. Susan looked at the tactical officer. His hands hovered over the weapons controls, ready to return fire if ordered. She understood his anger. She felt it too. Jump drives ready in 30 seconds, Sam called out. Greg stood from his command chair. When we get home, the Defense Council will decide our next steps, but I want everyone to understand something. He looked around at his crew. What happened? Here today will not stand. Earth extended a hand in friendship and they tried to cut it off. We will return, and next time, the galaxy will learn why they should have welcomed us as friends, rather than making us enemies. The Retribution reached the jump point and vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving behind a stunned Galactic Council who had expected the humans to be easily destroyed. They had made a terrible mistake. Earth would be back. The Global Defense Council chamber was silent as the video feed ended. 20 men and women sat around a large oval table, their faces pale in the dim light. They had just watched the recording of the Retribution's disastrous first contact mission. Admiral, Kate Bishop stood at the front of the room, her white uniform crisp against the dark walls. Her face showed no emotion, but her fingers gripped the edge of the podium tightly. 3 diplomats dead, she said. An unprovoked attack on our flagship. Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate act of aggression. Director, Frank Collins of Earth Intelligence, rose from his seat. He was a small man with tired eyes who rarely spoke above a whisper, forcing everyone to listen carefully. We've been analyzing the transmissions the Retribution managed to intercept, he said. It appears the Galactic Council has known about us for some time. They've been watching Earth for decades. Murmurs spread around the table. President Maria Garcia raised her hand, and the room fell silent again. What did they see that made them fear us so much? She asked. Dr. Olivia Reed, the leading xenobiologist on Earth, adjusted her glasses and stood. Everything, Madam President. Our wars, our weapons, our entertainment, even our fiction. She tapped a tablet and images appeared on the wall screen, scenes from human history and culture. To species that may have evolved differently, that might have developed space travel before they developed weapons of mass destruction, we look extremely dangerous, Olivia explained. They see a species that split the atom and immediately used it to destroy cities. They see a species that dreams up monsters and stories just to have heroes defeat them. Captain Greg Wallace, still wearing the uniform he'd had on when the Retribution returned to Earth, spoke next. They tried to kill us because of movies and history books? They tried to kill us because they're afraid, Commander Susan Ford said, from beside him. And based on what just happened, I'd say they were right to be afraid, just for the wrong reasons. We came in peace. They threw that away. President Garcia walked to the large window overlooking the shipyards in orbit above Earth. Through the reinforced glass, they could see the skeletal frames of 20 more vessels like the Retribution. Construction lights flickered like stars as workers in spacesuits moved around the massive structures. Earth had been building these ships for 5 years, ever since the discovery of faster-than-light travel. They were designed to protect humanity. If the galaxy turned out to be hostile, no one had expected to be proven right so quickly. "What are our options?" the president asked quietly. Admiral Bishop straightened her shoulders. "We could send the entire fleet, show them our full strength, make them regret attacking us, and start an interstellar war before we even know what we're fighting against?" Frank Collins shook his head. "We don't know their numbers, their technology, their allies. We know they'll kill our people without provocation," Susan said, her voice tight with anger. "We know they didn't even try to talk." The room broke into heated debate. Some council members wanted immediate retaliation. Others urged caution and more information gathering. A few even suggested retreating from galactic space entirely, focusing on building defenses around the solar system. President Garcia remained at the window, watching the ships being built, listening to the arguments behind her. After several minutes, she turned around. "Enough," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise like a knife. "We are not going to hide. We are not going to start a war, and we are not going to let this attack go unanswered." She walked back to the table and placed her hands flat on its surface. "Send one ship," she said. "Just one. The Retribution, repaired and at full strength. Show them what humanity is truly capable of." Director Collins frowned. "One ship against their entire fleet? That's suicide." The president shook her head. "Not a battle. A message." She looked at Susan. "Commander Ford, you know the Retribution better than anyone except Captain Wallace. I'm giving you command for this mission." Greg began to protest, but the president held up her hand. "Captain, you showed remarkable restraint out there. You got your ship and most of your crew home safely. But for this mission, we need someone who wasn't in command when we were attacked. Someone who can approach this with a clear mind." Susan stood straighter. "What are my orders, Madam President?" "Go back to the Galactic Council. Show them that humans don't run and hide when threatened. Show them our technology, our tactics, our determination. But," she emphasized, looking at each person in the room, "you are not to start a war. Defend yourself if attacked. Make them understand we are not to be trifled with. Then offer peace again." Admiral Bishop nodded slowly. A show of force followed by an outstretched hand. "Exactly," said the president. "Let them see both what we can do and what we choose not to do." Dr. Reed spoke up. "They need to understand that our capacity for violence is matched by our capacity for restraint. That's what makes humans different, not that we can fight, but that we can choose not to." Susan thought about the attack, about the 3 diplomats who had died, about Jack Porter's face when he realized his colleagues were gone, about Alan Miller's hand hovering over the weapons controls, waiting for an order that never came. "I understand. The mission," she said. A week later, the Retribution was ready. Repairs had been completed and new systems installed. The ship now carried advanced sensor packages to gather more information about the Galactic Council's technology. Its shields had been reinforced and its weapons calibrated to disable rather than destroy when possible. Susan stood on the bridge in her new captain's uniform, looking at her crew. Many were veterans from the first mission, including Lieutenant Alan Miller at Tactical and Diane Evans at Communications. Jack Porter had insisted on returning as lead diplomat, determined to finish what his team had started. "All stations report ready, Captain," Alan said. Susan nodded and took her seat in the command chair. "Set course for the Proxima Centauri system," she ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy who they're dealing with." The massive battleship turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the jump point. Behind it, construction continued on the rest of the fleet, ships that would hopefully never need to be used for war. On the main screen, stars streaked past as the Retribution leapt into faster-than-light travel, carrying humanity's message back to the stars. Admiral Keswick of the Vorn clicked his mandibles together in amusement as he received the report. His large compound eyes reflected the holographic display showing a single Earth vessel entering Galactic Council space. "They send one ship?" he chittered to his subordinates. "After we drove them away, they return with the same vessel?" The Vorn were insectoid beings who had been part of the Galactic Council for over 300 years. They specialized in tactical operations and had led the attack on the human ship during first contact. Karzik had personally authorized the assault, believing it would send the primitive humans scurrying back to their home system. "Perhaps they come to surrender," suggested his second-in-command. Karzik's mandibles clicked faster in what passed, for laughter among his kind. "Or perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand what happened. Deploy the 16th Fleet to intercept. A small force should be enough to handle one human vessel." 20 warships broke formation from the massive space station and moved toward the approaching Earth battleship. Each was only a quarter the size of the Retribution, but together they represented a formidable force. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Susan Ford watched the alien fleet approach. Their formation was tight and disciplined, designed to trap a single opponent. "They're not taking chances this time," observed Lieutenant Alan Miller from Tactical. "All enemy vessels are powering weapons." Susan nodded calmly. "Raise shields. Power all defensive systems, but keep weapons on standby." Jack Porter stood near the back of the bridge, watching nervously. "Are we really going to take on 20 ships?" "We're going to show them what one Earth ship can do," Susan replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. In the engine room, Engineer Sam Powell made final adjustments to the new systems that had been installed during the Retribution's refit. The ship now had capabilities that hadn't been tested in real combat conditions. Sam patted a large conduit affectionately. "Don't let us down now, beautiful," he whispered to the ship. The alien fleet spread out to surround the Earth vessel. There, weapons charged, prepared to destroy the humans who had dared to return. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Diane Evans. "Put it through," Susan ordered. A holographic image of Admiral Kuzik appeared above the command console. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke in a translated voice. "Human vessel, you have violated Council space again. Your species has been deemed too dangerous for interstellar travel. Surrender your ship or be destroyed." Susan rose from her chair and looked directly at the alien admiral. "This is Captain Susan Ford of the Earth battleship Retribution. We came in peace before, and you responded with violence. We have returned to demonstrate that humanity will not be contained or controlled. We do not seek war, but we will not accept threats." Kazik's compound eyes flashed. "You are in no position to make demands. Your single ship faces 20 of our best warships." Susan smiled slightly. "Then this should be educational for everyone. Ford out." The transmission ended and Susan turned to her crew. "Defensive pattern Delta. Let's show them what we can do." The massive Earth battleship began to move with surprising speed and agility. New maneuvering thrusters installed during the refit allowed the ship to change direction much faster than anything its size should be capable of. "Enemy vessels firing," Alan reported calmly. Streaks of energy lanced toward the Retribution from multiple directions. Instead of trying to avoid them all, Susan had ordered a new defensive approach. "Targeted shield reinforcement," she commanded. The ship's energy shields, previously a uniform bubble around the hull, now shifted and concentrated at specific points, becoming nearly impenetrable where the enemy fire was about to hit. Weapons that should have damaged the Earth vessel dissipated harmlessly against the enhanced barriers. In the engine room, Sam worked frantically to manage power distribution. "That's it, baby," he muttered as he watched the shield modulators perform perfectly. "Show them what Earth engineering can do." Admiral Kuzik watched in disbelief as his fleet's first volley failed to damage the human ship. "Impossible," he chittered. "Their shield technology was not this advanced before." "Sir," his tactical officer reported with concern, "the human vessel is emitting unusual energy patterns. Our sensors cannot identify the technology." Back on the Retribution, Susan gave her next order. "Phase 1 complete. Now for Phase 2. Deploy countermeasures." Small objects launched from ports along the battleship's hull, spreading out among the alien vessels. They appeared to be simple drones, but each contained technology based on principles the Council races had never explored. "Countermeasures active," Allen reported. "Enemy targeting systems are being disrupted." The alien ships began firing again, but their shots went wide, missing the Earth vessel entirely. Their precise formation began to break down as communication between their ships suffered interference. "Phase 3, Susan said. "Target weapons and propulsion systems only. Disable, don't destroy." For the first time since entering Council space, the Retribution powered up its weapons. But instead of the expected energy beams, precision-guided electromagnetic pulses shot out, striking the alien vessels one by one. Systems failed across the Vorn fleet as the carefully calibrated pulses overloaded their technology. Ships began to drift, their engines and weapons disabled but life support still functioning. "What is happening?" Admiral Kizik demanded, as his own flagship systems began to fail. "How can they do this with one ship?" On the Retribution's bridge, Jack Porter watched in amazement. "We're winning," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "We're not trying to win a war," Susan corrected him. "We're sending a message." Within 30 minutes, 18 of the 20 Council warships had been disabled without a single one being destroyed. The remaining 2, including Admiral Kizik's flagship, maintained position but had stopped firing. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Susan ordered. "I want every species in the Council to hear this." Diane established the connection, and Susan stood tall as she delivered humanity's message. "This is Captain Susan Ford of Earth. You have witnessed what a single human vessel can do when threatened. We disabled your ships without destroying them, because we do not seek the deaths of your people. Earth has 20 more vessels like this one, with more being built. We could have sent our entire fleet. We chose to send one." She paused to let that sink in. "Humanity sought peaceful contact. You responded with violence. We have demonstrated our capability to defend ourselves, but we still prefer friendship to conflict. I am prepared to meet with your Council representatives to establish diplomatic relations between our civilizations. The choice is yours. Continue to treat us as enemies and face the consequences, or accept us as equals and benefit from what we can offer each other." The Retribution remained in position, surrounded by disabled alien ships, waiting for a response. In the Council chambers aboard the distant space station, 17 species frantically discussed the implications of what they had just witnessed. A civilization they had dismissed as primitive had just humbled their fleet with previously unknown technology. A species they had feared because of its violent history had shown remarkable restraint and victory. After an hour of tense waiting, a new transmission reached the Earth vessel. The face that appeared was not Admiral Kuzik, but a female humanoid, with blue skin and silver eyes. "Captain Ford, I am Counselor Talara of the Ashari. The Galactic Council requests your presence for diplomatic discussions. We guarantee your safety this time." Susan exchanged glances with Jack Porter, who nodded cautiously. "We accept your invitation, Counselor. But remember, the rest of Earth is watching. What happens next will determine the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy." The humans had come back not for revenge but to earn respect. With a single battleship, they had succeeded. The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as Captain Susan Ford entered with her small team. The room was enormous, with a high-domed ceiling displaying a real-time map of the galaxy. 17 raised platforms formed a circle, each occupied by representatives of the Council races. In the center was an empty platform where visitors could stand. Susan walked confidently to the center, followed by Jack Porter and Dr. Nancy Chen, Earth's foremost expert on extraterrestrial cultures. Lieutenant Alan Miller came last, wearing a formal military uniform but with a hand near his sidearm. After their last reception, the humans were taking no chances. Counselor Talara of the Ashari stood from her platform. Her blue skin seemed to shimmer under the chamber's lights, and her silver eyes studied the humans carefully. "Captain Ford," she began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber, "the Council acknowledges your return under unusual circumstances." Susan noted the careful wording. No apology for the attack, no admission of wrongdoing. We returned to correct a misunderstanding, Susan replied, her voice steady. Earth sought peaceful contact. Your forces responded with violence. We demonstrated that humans cannot be intimidated or controlled through force. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Admiral Kuzik chittered angrily from the Vorn platform. Your ship disabled 8 of our vessels without any warning. You have proven our fears correct. Humans are dangerous. Dr. Nancy Chen stepped forward. She was shorter than Susan, with calm eyes and a gentle voice that somehow carried authority. We disabled your ships without destroying them, she pointed out. We caused no deaths, despite your unprovoked attack that killed 3 of our diplomats. If we were the warmongers you fear, would we not have responded with equal violence? A tall, thin alien with gray skin and large eyes spoke next. I am Counselor Drell of the Mithran Collective. Our intelligence suggests that humans have a violent history spanning thousands of years. Your entertainment celebrates conflict. Your nations are built on warfare. We observed your world for decades before making the decision to discourage your expansion. Jack Porter shook his head in disbelief. You attacked us because of our history and our movies? We attacked you, rumbled a massive rock-like being from another platform, because every prediction model showed that allowing humans into the galactic community would lead to chaos and possibly war within a century. Susan looked around the chamber, finally understanding. You were afraid, so you decided to strike first. It was the logical choice, Kuzik insisted. One primitive species contained, rather than risk the stability of 17 civilizations. Lieutenant Miller tensed beside Susan, his hand inching closer to his weapon. She subtly motioned for him to stand down. Let me ask you something, Susan said, addressing all the council members. Did your predictions account for a human ship that could have destroyed your fleet but chose not to? Did they factor in that we would return seeking diplomacy rather than revenge? Talara's silver eyes widened slightly. They did not. Dr. Chen took this opening. You judged us by our past, not our potential. Yes, humans have fought wars, we've made terrible weapons, we've imagined fearsome conflicts in our stories, but through all of that, we've also created art, music, and literature. We've developed medicine to heal, not just weapons to harm. She walked in a small circle, making eye contact with representatives of each species. Most importantly, we learn. Each painful lesson from our history has taught us to be better. Our capacity for violence is matched by our capacity for growth. The chamber was quiet as the alien representatives considered her words. Then a new voice spoke, deep and resonant, from a platform occupied by a being that seemed to be made of living crystal. I am Elder Zan of the Luminari. We are one of the oldest species in the council. Light played through the crystalline features as the being spoke. In our 10,000 years of spacefaring history, we have seen civilizations rise and fall. Those who cannot adapt, perish. The Elder's gaze fixed on Susan. Your ship's technology is unexpected. You have approached problems of physics and engineering differently than any council race. How did a primitive species develop such capabilities in isolation? Susan smiled slightly. Because we had to solve those problems on our own without guidance. Earth was alone. We thought we were the only intelligent life in the universe until a few years ago. Every advance we made came from our own creativity and determination. Jack stepped forward. That's what you've been missing in your predictions. Humans don't follow expected patterns. We adapt. We innovate. We surprise even ourselves sometimes. Talara conferred quietly with several other council members before addressing the humans again. Your demonstration was impressive, but it has also confirmed some of our fears. One of your vessels disabled a significant portion of our defensive fleet. If you have 20 more such ships, then we could have sent them all, Susan finished for her. But we didn't. We sent one ship with orders to show restraint. That should tell you everything you need to know about humanity's intentions. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives argued for accepting the humans as potential allies. Others insisted they were too unpredictable to trust. A few demanded further demonstrations of Earth's technology before making a decision. Through it all, Susan and her team stood calmly in the center, neither intimidated nor aggressive. They represented a species that had faced its own extinction multiple times throughout history and had always found a way to survive. Finally, Talara called for order. The council requires time to deliberate. Captain Ford, you and your team will be provided accommodations aboard this station. We guarantee your safety. Susan nodded. Thank you, Counselor, but understand that the Retribution will remain nearby and my crew will stay on high alert. Trust must be earned after what happened during our first visit. As the humans were escorted from the chamber, Admiral Kuzik approached Talara. You cannot seriously be considering allowing them into the council. He chittered angrily. Talara watched the humans leave. I am considering the alternatives, Admiral. A species with their capabilities will not be contained. Would you prefer them as allies or enemies? In their assigned quarters, the Earth team gathered to discuss the meeting. The rooms were luxurious, but clearly designed for different body types than human. The chairs were too low, the tables too high. They're still afraid of us, Alan observed, checking the room for surveillance devices. With good reason, Susan replied. We did just disable 8 of their warships with minimal effort. Dr. Chen sat cross-legged on the floor, more comfortable there than in the alien furniture. Fear can be the beginning of respect, she said thoughtfully. They've realized we're not what they expected. That's progress. Jack paced nervously. But will it be enough? What if they decide we're too dangerous after all? Susan looked out through a viewport where she could see the Retribution holding position nearby, its running lights gleaming against the darkness of space. Then they'll learn that their first mistake wasn't attacking us, she said quietly. It was attacking us and leaving survivors to tell the story. Throughout the night, the 17 species of the Galactic Council argued and debated. Models were run, scenarios played out, histories examined. The arrival of humans had forced them to reconsider assumptions they had held for centuries. By morning, they had reached a decision that would forever change the galaxy. Humanity would either become their greatest ally or their most dangerous adversary. The choice was made not based on Earth's past, but on what its future might hold. And as the new day cycle began on the station, Susan Ford prepared to hear the Council's decision, knowing that whatever happened next would shape the relationship between Earth and the stars for generations to come. 1 year had passed since the historic meeting in the Galactic Council chambers. The Retribution hung in orbit above Earth, no longer alone. 3 alien vessels floated nearby, diplomatic ships from the Ashari, the Luminari, and even the Vorn. Each represented a different faction of the Council races who had decided to establish direct relations with humanity. Susan Ford, now Admiral Ford, stood in the observation lounge of Earth's orbital diplomatic station. The large windows offered a spectacular view of the planet below and the ships above. She wore a formal dress uniform with new insignia showing her elevated rank. Quite a change from last year, said a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Jack Porter, now Earth's official ambassador to the Galactic Council. The diplomatic corps had grown significantly under his leadership, with specialists trained to understand each of the 17 Council species. I'm still surprised the Vorn sent representatives, Susan said, nodding toward the insectoid ship with its distinctive mandible-like projections. Admiral Kuzik was the most opposed to accepting humans into the galactic community. Jack smiled. That's why they sent him personally. He wanted to see Earth for himself. Below them, in the station's main conference room, Dr. Nancy Chen was leading a seminar for alien visitors. Holographic displays showed Earth's history, culture, and scientific achievements. Representatives from 12 Council species watched with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Our visitors seem nervous, Susan observed. Wouldn't you be? Jack asked. They spent decades watching Earth from a distance, seeing only our conflicts and struggles. Now they're here, surrounded by the species they once feared enough to attack on sight. Lieutenant Alan Miller, now a commander himself, entered the lounge wearing the uniform of the newly formed Joint Defense Force. His insignia combined Earth symbols with markings from several council races. "The Mithrin delegation has arrived, Admiral," he reported. "Their ships are requesting permission to dock." Susan nodded. "Granted. Make sure they understand our security protocols." The year since the Council's decision had been busy for all involved. After days of deliberation, the 17 species had voted to accept humanity into their community, not with enthusiasm, but with cautious recognition of reality. Humans could not be contained, so they must be integrated. Earth had gained access to star charts mapping thousands of systems, cultural databases from civilizations spanning millennia, and scientific knowledge that would have taken humans centuries to discover independently. In return, humanity shared its unique approaches to technology, particularly in shield design and propulsion. More importantly, a new understanding had begun to form between Earth and the stars. The very qualities that had made the Council fear humans, their adaptability, their unconventional thinking, their determination, were becoming valued as strengths rather than threats. In the engineering section of the station, Sam Powell led a team of human and alien technicians working on a joint project. The humans provided innovative ideas while the aliens contributed materials and techniques unknown on Earth. "Try routing the power through the secondary matrix," Sam suggested to a crystalline luminary engineer. "Our simulations show it increases efficiency by 13%. The luminary tilted its faceted head. "Unconventional, potentially unstable, but worth testing." This scene played out across hundreds of projects throughout the solar system. Human scientists worked alongside alien counterparts, each bringing different perspectives to shared problems. The results were often unexpected but almost always impressive. Back in the observation lounge, Susan's communication device chimed. President Maria Garcia's voice came through clearly. "Admiral, how are our guests settling in?" "As well as can be expected, Madam President. There's still tension, but progress is being made daily." "Good." The President paused. "The Council has formally invited Earth to establish a permanent embassy on their central station. They've also requested that we participate in a joint military exercise next month." Susan raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant change from last year when they tried to destroy our ship." "Indeed. I believe they've realized that it's better to have humans working with them than against them." After the call ended, Susan returned to the window. In the distance, she could see the shipyards where Earth's fleet was under construction. The design of the newer vessels incorporated elements from both human and alien technology. They were still primarily defensive in nature, but now they also served as symbols of cooperation rather than just deterrence. Alan joined her at the window. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" he asked quietly. "If we had fired back during that first encounter?" Susan nodded solemnly. "We would be at war now. Millions would be dead on both sides." She turned to face him. "It was a close thing. When they killed our diplomats, I wanted to hit the firing button myself." "What stopped you?" "The same thing that stopped Captain Wallace from giving the order. The understanding that how we responded would define humanity to the galaxy forever." She looked back at the Earth below. "We could have been conquerors. Instead, we chose to be teachers and students both." In the council chambers billions of miles away, Elder Zan of the Luminari addressed the assembled representatives. The crystalline being's voice resonated through the room. "The integration of humans into our community continues to yield unexpected results. Their approach to the unified shield theory has solved problems our scientists struggled with for centuries. Their educational exchange programs have introduced new methods of thinking to our youth." Admiral Kuzik chittered reluctantly from the Vorn platform. "Their military training has also proven instructive. Their tactical approaches are unorthodox, but effective." Counselor Talara nodded. "The humans have surprised us at every turn. When we attacked them, they responded with restraint. When we feared them, they offered friendship. When we doubted them, they proved their worth." "They remain dangerous," warned a representative from a cautious species. "Yes," agreed Talara. But now they are dangerous on our behalf, not against us. The same qualities that made us fear them make them valuable allies. Back on Earth, night had fallen over the United Nations Plaza in New York. A new monument had been unveiled that day. A simple stone obelisk bearing the names of the 3 diplomats who had died during the first contact mission. Their sacrifice had not been forgotten. President Garcia stood before a gathering of world leaders and alien representatives. Behind her loomed a holographic display showing the Retribution alongside ships from various council races. 1 year ago, she began, a single Earth battleship showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Today, that same ship serves as a symbol of something greater, our capacity to turn potential enemies into friends, to transform fear into respect, and to build bridges across the stars. In the audience, Susan listened with quiet pride. The path forward would not be easy. Centuries of misunderstanding could not be erased in a single year. Some humans distrusted the aliens. Some aliens still feared humans. But the foundation had been laid for something unprecedented, a true galactic community where differences were valued rather than feared. As the speech ended and the crowds dispersed, Susan found herself standing beside a Vorn officer, one of Admiral Kuzik's subordinates. The insectoid being's mandibles moved hesitantly, forming words in the human language it had been learning. "Your ship?" it said, pointing toward the hologram of the Retribution. "It could have destroyed us all." Susan nodded. "Yes, but it did not." "No." The alien's compound eyes studied her face. "This is why we feared you. This is also why we need you." Susan extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a moment's hesitation, the Vorn extended a chitinous limb to touch it. The galaxy had cowered when Earth's battleship arrived. Now it watched in cautious hope as humanity reached for the stars not with closed fists, but with open hands.